I recently made a video talking about how I have been after receiving my Spinraza injection 9 weeks later. And right now, I am currently on the 13th week mark. By the time this video uploads, it will be the 14th week mark, I believe. And anyhow, I wanted to personally document this experience, how I have personally been feeling. Usually around this time, for those of you, to backtrack really quick, is for those of you who don't know what I mean by my Spinraza injections, is I have SMA type 2, which is Spinal Muscular Atrophy type 2. I receive Spinraza injections, which is not a cure, but it is a form of a treatment for my disability. And I receive 3 injections 3 times a year, which is every 4 months. So usually around my 3rd month, I really start to feel fatigued. Meaning, when I say fatigued, I'm talking about like doing things with my daily routine becomes a really big struggle. Feeding myself becomes a struggle. Chewing my food becomes a really big struggle. Swallowing my food becomes another big struggle. Brushing my teeth, anything to do with my normal routines, with eating, to eating, feeding myself, to eating, drinking, operating and managing my phone and computer to upload videos like this, for example, and work on other projects that I'm currently working on behind the scenes. It takes some form of effort, and usually those efforts becomes a much bigger challenge for me around my 3rd month, because I start to feel more fatigued. I do not have the energy, I do not have the strength to put in as much effort as I did when I'm feeling my normal, if that makes sense. I hope I was able to explain that fairly well. So usually, again, the 3rd month, that is how I am feeling. I'm usually struggling. Right now, how I am currently feeling is not normal to me. What I mean by that is I'm talking about, it's actually quite the contrary. I am able to feed myself. I am able to brush my teeth. I am able to handle and do things to my normalcy. I am able to manage my daily routine the way I'd like to, at least in the best of my ability, to my normalcy. And I wanted to mention too is, one, it could be the injection within itself that is showing promises, because I have seen significant improvement just within the past from my previous injections. For example, I struggled writing, I struggled writing before, and now I am able to write, to kind of put that in context. So right now it's the 13th week, I'm doing fairly well. So the injection could be showing improvement, which I am hopeful for, that it continues to improve. But also too, something I wanted to self-document and talk about and mention in this video is I started lifting 1 pound weights. I think I started doing this, don't quote me, I'll throw up a screen recording of what it is I'm about to talk about here. But I recently started lifting 1 pound weights in June 10th, I believe it was. And what I do is I write the date, and then, so for example, I'll write like 6/10/2023, and then I write how many sets of me lifting, me working on my arm. And I started doing that, and I started self-documenting me lifting weights. Now, my logic behind that is, the more I do, the more energy and effort it takes, and the more energy and effort that it takes for me to do holds the potential to having me feel very fatigued the next day, because I'm overworking myself. To kind of put it in perspective, is let's just say you don't go swimming much and you haven't been in the pool in a while. You jump in the pool and you're in the pool for, say, a few hours, a really long time, and you're doing this really big workout. That night or the next day, you're going to be sore. You're going to be feeling drained, right? Because you overworked yourself. That's kind of like the best way I can kind of describe what it is I mean by saying, me knowing that the more I do, it also holds the potential to have me feeling more fatigued the next day. So by me mentioning that, is I try to keep in mind not to overwork myself, because as much as it is good to exercise my arms and kind of keep my arms strong, I also do have to keep in mind and be mindful that if I overwork myself, I may not be able to move as much the next day, which then can decrease my strength even faster simply because I'm not moving or utilizing my mobility as much the next day. I hope I was able to kind of explain that fairly well. But anyhow, I started self-documenting my journey about lifting these weights. My old record was to do 50 sets. When I first began, I just did like 5 or 10 sets in one setting, and then I would leave for several, like maybe 30 minutes to an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then I would go back and try to do more. In the beginning, that's what I was doing, but now what I'm doing is I'm trying to do everything in one setting. So I'm trying to see how many I can lift this 1 pound weight just in one setting. So for example, let's just say my one setting is right now, I would grab a 1 pound weight and I would sit here and then I would put on music or listen to something on the computer or whatever, and I would do arm curls and see how many I can do. My old record, by doing that in one setting, it took me about 11 minutes, and I remember that because I was watching a video. I forgot what it was, but I was watching it in a video and kind of just lost track of time. I was just so in tune with what it was I was watching and learning. It was probably, I don't know, I can't remember what I was listening to. It was probably like a Mr. Beast video. I think it was Mr. Beast talking about YouTube or something. But anyhow, I was watching the video, so I kind of was distracted and I wasn't focused on me struggling by me doing the curls, or the arm exercises. I was mainly focused on just doing it, if that makes sense. And I was counting in my head. I was able to do 50 that day, which at the time was my personal best. I recently just beat my personal best, which was 61. I think it was 61. And for me, it actually was a little bit more, but when I lift the weights, I have to hit a certain point or get to a certain point in order for me to fully count it. If I do not get to a certain point, like when I go up, I have to touch my chest. If I cannot touch my chest, not tap it, but I actually touch my chest, I personally do not count that curl, I think they call it. But yeah, I wanted to self-document that, and I wanted to mention this in the video. So what I started doing, I'll have the screen recording so you can kind of see what it was I'm doing with my personal chart. And I started self-documenting it. So what I do is I write the date that I did it, and then I'll do how many sets I did, and then I'll even do, I recently just started doing personal reflection. And personal reflection meaning is because I noticed when I was documenting that, for example, yesterday I could do, let's just say 25, for example. And then today I was only able to do like 3 to 5. And I wanted to kind of write a personal reflection because it's not so much that I am feeling a lot weaker that day. It could be because it has happened like that, because I have noticed that if I overworked myself today I might be more drained and tired. But I started doing personal reflection because if I am going out somewhere, or if I know I have a lot of work that I have to do on the computer with the projects that I'm working on, I do not overwork myself as much because I'd rather put in my effort and my energy into what it is I'm working on rather than my strength. For me, it's just because of where it is I am trying to go. To me, it just makes more sense to utilize majority of my energy on what I think is more priority rather than overworking my arms and having the possibility that tomorrow I might not be able to access my computer as much or at all. So I wanted to self-document this experience because, again, it's been 13 weeks, and I still do have my on and off days. But on and off days, I'm talking about, I call them good and bad days, or on and off days. Is good days, I'm talking about me being able to handle my daily routines to my normalcy. Bad and off days as me struggling with my normalcy. And something I recently have been struggling a lot is, although my arm has been quite well, let me say fairly well, especially around the 3rd month mark, my neck support has not been. Lately I have been chewing like this, and lately I have been chewing like this with my neck up to kind of rest my neck. And I wanted to mention this in this video because, and this is my own personal reflection as to why my neck is like that. Is one is my strength, right? So I'm working out my arms, but I'm not working out all of my other muscles in my body because it's a bit more of a, not so much of a challenge, but it's really difficult for me to work some muscles of my body out. You know, for example, like my legs, for example, my neck, for example. You know, I noticed my neck support has been the same. So lately I have been chewing and eating like this. On times like that, I try to become mindful as much as possible. When I am like that, when I'm chewing and I'm eating like this, I try to become very mindful when it is I am like that, because I do not want my muscles to get comfortable with that. I'd rather I like to become mindful when I am like this chewing and tell myself to sit up and kind of force myself to sit up. And the reason being is because I do not want my muscles or my neck to get comfortable being like this every time I am feeling a particular way with my strength, if that makes sense. If I am struggling and I have to be like this, I kind of force myself to sit up and get up because I do not want my neck to be like that. I'd rather struggle in the process than to be in the process and struggle. I hope this video was able to bring some form of value to and for you. I know this video is a bit more personal. As I continue, I'm trying to document as much as possible, mainly right now, with where I currently am, with my personal life, and kind of self-document where I'm at currently, how I'm feeling and doing currently, especially with my SMA. I think it holds value to kind of self-document what it is I'm doing now, and try to explain why I do certain things now, because I think it could bring value to and for someone out there, whether they have SMA or not. You know, if you have SMA, you might find some inspiration to say, you know what, let me try lifting a 1 pound weight and try it out. Let me try lifting a 2 pound weight. Now the 2 pound weight, I was able to lift the 2 pound weight, not exactly the way I would hope to, but I was able to do it with 2 hands, which was a really big struggle. But I have the 2 pound weight there to kind of give me the inspiration to say, like, one day you're going to be able to pick that up. That's kind of like my mentality. It kind of gives me something to look forward to, you know, being able to do. Again, I wanted to self-document this experience, talk about this experience, and share this experience with you. Anyhow, I love you, I appreciate you, and remember, grow through what you go through. Much love.